Everybody. Today we got a lot of things to go over, so let's just jump right in. The first thing we're going to talk about is how earnings are down, markets are up, and the Fed announcement just came out and said, hey, guess what? We're going to raise the rates to 0.75, which is, I was kind of hoping for a full percentage point, but here we are. Also, we're going to take a look at or talk to what I call the Simon indicator. Simon Yu is going to be here from StormX. He's going to talk to us about exactly what's going on. Then we're going to talk about how take a look at did we bottom from a piece from Arcane Research as we see hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin being liquidated. And then two last things is I have to ask the question, did Warren Buffett gaslight us as it's come to pass that he invested into a crypto heavy bank and what that means moving forward. And lastly, we'll take a look at what's going on with Do Kwon as the news titan. So first of all, let's just take a look at this. The earnings. Earnings are down, which I find pretty interesting, but the market is actually up. So it's kind of crazy, but that's why I got the Simon indicator to help us out. So real quick, this is what we got. Today or yesterday, I thought the earnings report were going to come out pretty low, and they were. They missed, not by a lot. But I thought, well, if that's going to happen, then we're going to see a little reduction in the our markets. But no, seems like everybody's pretty darn bullish. And you can see right now, we're holding above 1 trillion, which I thought for sure we would go below, but that's not the case. Bitcoin's up in the last 24 hours, 4%. Let me just refresh this. I wonder what it is in the last hour. There we go. So with the Fed announcing 0.75, 75 basis points. Everybody's like, great, off to the races. Now all they do is worry about August. So the last hour, 1.4, 3.3. Man, 10% for Ethereum. Did anything drop? Yes. Tether and USD coin drop because everybody's getting out of their stables and buying a bunch of crypto, which is what I am going to do today. Actually, I'm here with you. Actually, I think I'm going to have Simon do a lot of things so I can put in my orders. Damn, Ethereum Classic, 20%. So that's what's happening in our market. Great. Everybody's happy. Everybody's having a good time. Fantastic. S&P 500 up. NASDAQ up. Let's see. Earnings calendar. This is what I was talking about. You had Microsoft and Alphabet. This was yesterday. And we take a look at them real quick. You can see that, where is it? The earnings themselves missed by just a little bit. Estimated EPS, earnings per share, 2.28, and reported was 2.23. And it was the same thing for Alphabet or Google. And of course, Microsoft is up, Google is up. And of course, the Fed comes out and says, hey, 0.75 points, so here we are. And it's looking pretty good, even with the true inflation rate. I know people aren't really impressed with the 9.85%, but this is a lot better than the 11, almost 12% it was around March. So that's what we have for the markets and the announcement and everything else. Let's talk to what I call the Simon indicator so he can tell us exactly what could potentially is happening now and in the future. So Simon, founder of StormX from 2014, back on the show again. Thanks for stopping by, buddy.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So that was everything in a nutshell. A lot of information thrown out, but you've been pretty bullish, which was kind of not crazy, but you were pretty bearish beginning. And then all of a sudden you're like, this is why I call you my Simon indicator, because you're kind of like the canary in the coal mine for me. And I'm like, wow, Simon's a little bit more bullish than maybe I should be too. So what we got?
Yeah. I mean, especially with crypto, I mean, we have a lot of macro stuff going on too, but 40 to 30K was Luna selling off everything, and 30 to 20K was, a lot of it was Celsius. I mean, if you follow whale trades or some of the on-chain activity, you could see Celsius was sending a ton of crypto to FTX, and every time they did so, we saw a little bit of a correction. And then a few days later, or a few hours later, they would pay down their Maker loans or Aave loans that they had, and then they just eventually just paid it all down. So there's no more selling pressure. And then they formally declared the bankruptcy. So I don't think there's going to be any forced selling from there. So, and then we saw the court filings from Three Arrow Capital, and we saw exactly who, borrowed from them and who was the biggest exposure. So Genesis was probably the biggest one, but it seems like they're fine because, they're backed by Grayscale and they, have some funds. So it doesn't look like there's going to be any more contagions. So that's probably why, SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried also probably said like, hey, we're probably approaching the bottom. And That definitely makes sense. From a macro perspective, though, it's just like a lot of the things have been priced in. Like you're talking about missed earnings and stuff like that, and Snapchat's earnings were really bad, and it tanked their shares, and sort of the market was, freaking out in terms of like, oh shoot, is this like a really bad recession, or is this company specific? And they're trying to identify that. But then when Google and Microsoft came out, they barely missed their earnings just by a little bit, which is not too bad. So people priced in stuff that's a lot worse, right? So that's why markets are going up. And I do think it's going to be company specific. I think Facebook will probably miss quite a bit just because most of their ad revenue is going to go down after the Apple's privacy policy that changed. And so as long as it's company specific, not an industry wide thing, I think we're looking better. And my biggest thing was, outside the whole, Celsius and forced selling stopping for turning bullish. The second reason was the fact that market's starting to price in that rates will be, the Fed will be easing the rate hikes as of like Q1 or Q2. So we started seeing this in Asia. So in China, they're trying to bail out Evergrande, which is like the largest mortgage provider there, and a lot of retail holders, provide that. They just bailed out that bank where people were protesting because all their funds got locked, and Japan's trying to ease their rate hikes as well too, and stuff like that. And I think overall, Western countries will start doing something similar, just because this inflation is so different from the 80s, where this was caused because we printed 80% of the total U.S. supply in the last like 2 years.
That's
and
right.
So inflation's here to stay. And I think the Fed, they've just been really slow at realizing the truth. They were, in denial that inflation was transitory for a really long time. And then they finally admitted it like 2 months ago.
Right.
And with this as well, too, it's just going to take some time. But the market is starting to realize, that the Fed is going to have to ease down. And otherwise, it's going to be a straight up depression. So
you think so you weren't surprised with this 0.75% increase or 75 basis point increase. You're like, yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. Because if they went, you were thinking maybe the full point would have crashed the economy, or not crash, but you know what I mean.
You can share my DM I sent you last week, right? I said the exact same thing. I said 0.75, and then we're bullish. I sent you 1 week ago, like exact quotes. It is because like you like the government officials can't leak anything officially, right? But a lot of them are really desperate because they're losing the public sentiment, and you can see sort of from like President Biden's tweets, like he's trying to calm everyone down. He's like, gas prices are down 5 cents, like 10 cents, like it's a small amount, but just to like calm people down before midterm elections come. And he's subtly hinting like, oh, CPI data is like a month late. So the CPI data that we had like a couple of weeks ago, it looked pretty bearish, but the one that's going to come out for this month is probably going to be a lot better. So I'm starting to think that the market will start reversing, unless like, and the tough part is like, there's so much news that's been happening recently, and it's sort of like you have to just watch everything on a week by week basis. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm a perma bull or I'm a perma bear. But as of right now, like as of today, things look good. But if like China invades Taiwan or like Russia drops a nuke, like that's definitely going to change, everything, right? So it's really tough to say. And that's why in my tweets, so you sort of see me like flip flopping and stuff like that, just based on new information that comes out. And that's why I tend to not, give trading advice. I just like blatantly say what I'm thinking right now on Twitter.
So Simon, this is why we're friends. Because you just told me all the great bullish news, but at the very end you're like, well, there's also this other possibility where China invades Taiwan or a nuclear strike, or of course the Ukraine war just drags on forever. Exactly. You have to. If people are just here, see on this channel, people aren't here for hopium, obviously, because I've been bearish for so long that I think people get used to it. I got to tell you, with the things that we've been talking about, it makes a little more sense about how things are going, which would actually lead me to my next point, which you talked about, the contagion and the bottoms and all those things. So the question I have is this. There was this great graph from Arcane Research. And actually, I stole this from Guy over at Coin Bureau, first of all. And it talks about, this is a great chart, 236,000 Bitcoin and known institutional Bitcoin sales since May. Could have already seen most of the forced sales liquidations because because look, man, you've been around forever, since 2014 with StormX, and you've known a lot of people coming through. I know this was, quite a bit of a hit, but now that you take a look at these things that are going on as far as like the contagion, the sell-offs, and where we're going, do you feel like the bottom is in? And not that me and you can predict that. That's dumb because we don't have crystal balls, but just as like just a general overview, what do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, as long as the macro side is stable, which it does look like it's stabilizing. Again, unless there's like a crazy war or something like that, I do think the bottom is in. And if there's any crypto companies that that hasn't been disclosed yet in terms of like, they're actually bankrupt and we got to sell billions in crypto. Unless those two things don't happen, I do think the bottom is in. But again, like it's just every week new information comes out. And that's the part that makes it really challenging. But yeah, in terms of like, out of all my years in crypto, the fact that we've absorbed like billions and billions of dollars in forced sales from, all these companies that are going liquid, or also the miners selling and people panic selling, like Tesla selling, and like there's been, surprisingly a good chunk of buyers on the other side that are scooping it up. So I mean, if it was like 2-3 years ago and we had this much selling pressure, I think Bitcoin would be at like $400 right now. Like it's just, there was so much selling in the past like 3-4 months. It's pretty insane actually.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, but let's be honest, between me and you, if Bitcoin went below 10K, that would be like a big present for most of us. But to hit that 400, I mean, that'd be a lot. But look at this. Look at these prices are going out. I can see it. And also, before I forget, this just came across that we were talking about FTX and things like that. FTX just came out and said that FTX stocks is now live for all U.S. users. And that's all 50 states, including New York, Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. What do you think?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, a lot of crypto people, I'm sure, would buy stocks. I mean, right now the sentiment is probably low, but that's typically true in the bear market. And I mean, for me, like, I tend to do opposite of what retail does. So I've actually been scooping quite a bit of crypto at like these prices, like 19, 20K. But it's just like, it's funny because the same guys that were saying, like Bitcoin's going to the moon at 68K, 69K, are trying to short the bottom like at like 19, 20K and say, oh, we're going to 10K or 8K. And so you call me the Simon indicator, which I think it's definitely hard to say because like I'm definitely wrong quite a bit of time. But I have this crypto YouTuber that doesn't have like too many subscribers that I follow. Not you, of course, but he's like the ultimate counter indicator. Everything he says is like he's like the Jim Cramer of crypto. It's actually pretty hilarious. But it's like just typical, retail sentiment because like a lot of like 80% of people will think like, oh, like the market is not at bottom, like things are not stable, like all this other stuff. But here's the thing, right? You have a bunch of really smart people that are trying to fix the problem.
Right.
And that's the factor that people tend to overlook all the time, right? So everyone thinks they're the smartest people in the room, but there are actually a lot of smart people with a lot of capital trying to reverse this situation. And for hedge funds, if 80% of people are short, it's a lot more profitable to go long and liquidate them and just take the other side. And so like, dude, it's kind of like when COVID happened, like COVID 2020. Like I was, this is actually a good lesson that I learned. I was in Asia like a few months before COVID, and so I sort of saw like how seriously Asia took it. And then I came back to the US, and the US like didn't take it seriously at all. And I thought like with our poor healthcare system, like this is gonna blow up in our face. And so I started shorting everything, and then people started laughing at me, whatever. But then after like, I remember it was like Tom Hanks and one of the NBA players got COVID. The market just tanked in mid-March, and then I was up quite a bit, and then I thought like, oh, it's only going to get worse from here. But I held a bit too long. That's when they started printing money and stuff like that, and so I definitely could have made a lot more gains had I thought that government intervention would probably change the perspective a little bit. But
sure. Yeah, but I mean, look, who's gonna hit the bottom perfectly or the top perfectly consistently? Never gonna happen. Who cares?
Yeah, no, it's just like I needed to have that change in perspective, like, and that I was just too like, focused on one side. That was like my biggest mistake, and like having an open mind is really tough for most people, I think, just because like you're so focused in one direction. Like at 69K, everybody thought we were bullish, and you can actually look back in my tweets too. I'm like, okay, everybody's way too bullish. I'm a little bit scared now. Like I said that like right before it crashed as well too.
Look, I was, and see that now. This is the difference because people think they're the smartest person in the room. I know for a fact I am not. I know I'm not the smartest guy. So what I always just try to do is just be as conservative as I possibly can. So like this, what I did a couple of weeks ago, I waited for the CPI numbers to come out, and instead of dollar cost averaging every day, I value cost average. Waited for the CPI numbers to come out. I thought it was going to be high. It was high, and then I bought as the market started to go down. Now with this one, I did the same thing. I thought, for sure, earnings are going to miss. And of course, they did, but not as much. And I honestly thought there was a 50-50 chance of going between 3/4 of a point and a full point. And it didn't come out that way. So what I said was, I'm going to do the same thing. Now I look at it and I go, well, didn't work out the way that I thought. So now I just put the orders in as you were talking. Yeah. Thank you. To buy my Bitcoin, my Ethereum, and some couple of other altcoins. Because
we still have tomorrow, so you got to be careful on that.
Yeah, there's always there's always tomorrow. But when I try to just to step back and look at things, I always say the same thing: Are these is Bitcoin expensive right now, or is it cheap? Are houses expensive right now, or are they cheap? Is land expensive, or is it cheap? I just kind of look at that and go, well, in 3, 5, 10 years, when I'm still around, hopefully, I think I'll be okay. So that's what I got. Hey man, you never know. You never know when it's your time. So that's what it is. Okay. So moving on to the next one. And this is actually some more bullish news for everybody, which is this. Did Warren Buffett gaslight us on crypto as he invests into it? So what I'm talking about here is this right here. There was, hold on real quick. I gotta make sure there he goes. So there was a story that we had covered a couple of days ago, how Barclays had done a funding round for copper.co, and that's an institutional platform. So institutions can get in, and like they've got big people. Like Barclays is a 1.4 trillion assets under management. They have State Street, one of the oldest banks. It's 4.2 trillion assets under management, and a bunch of other crypto institutions. So this is from Alexandra Huck. If you don't follow her, she's a pretty interesting person on Twitter. And on 5th of July, she said, hey, Barclays stopped my payments to a crypto exchange to protect my money, which has happened to me in the past in 2017, 2018. They got no problem letting me gamble to buy expensive things, yet they're trying to protect me. And then, of course, she talks about, that's interesting, Barclays just snapped up a $2 billion stake in copper. Watch what they do, not what they say. Which leads me to this thing. This was an article, and it's old, 5 months ago. And it talks about how Warren Buffett's Berkshire invests $1 billion in crypto-friendly new bank. Now, I didn't pay much attention to this, and because I'm like, well, he does these things every so often. He invests into like gold mining, even though he doesn't like gold. Fine, whatever else. But then it comes out, this was yesterday, Brazil's largest digital bank, Nubank, reaches 1 million crypto users after just a month. So, and they're also talking about asset tokenization and a bunch of other stuff that was going on. So I thought to myself, I wonder if Warren is changing his tune. But remember, even though that, this company got 1 million users, that's in Brazil, and Brazil's got 212 million people. So don't think it's like the end all be all. But the question is this: Warren's been wrong before. He pretty much told right to his face Amazon founder and said, hey, I don't believe in Amazon whatsoever. Bezos, I think it's a dumb thing. He also said the same thing about Google. Are these big companies behind the scenes doing a lot of different deals that we don't know about, or is this just one more? Simon Indicator, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know how actively he is involved in some of these decision making, but I'm guessing with $1 billion is probably, he probably had some say, but it seems like it's more of a fintech play more so than crypto. It's just, they support all these crypto stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm sure his fund, I mean, he has like probably so many different funds, like tens or hundreds of funds, and they probably have different purposes. So I mean, people diversify all the time. I wouldn't blame him. So his personal views might still remain the same, but then from a capital allocation perspective, it could be different because it's not really him that's making the decisions. His fund managers that's doing so. But yeah, like you said though, I mean, Warren Buffett's been like a very anti-tech guy for like the longest time, and then he bought like massive shares in Apple and all these other tech companies as well. But it's actually funny. I mean, a lot of these like really successful people, like they gamble hard. They bet big, and then they get it right once, then they become really successful, right? You could, it's sort of like a tech entrepreneur mind, or it's like investment mind. Like a lot of these really successful guys have one big, sort of win. And I think I saw an article where like, after Mark Cuban's exit, like every investment he had made was like net negative or something like that too. It was pretty bad. But and like Carl Icahn too, he made a big bet that was right, and then a lot of the stuff that he says was wrong. I mean, just because like you're right once doesn't mean that you're going to be right all the time. And also like it could be very comfortable, and you're already like one of the top richest people in the world. Do you have to stay up to date with all the new technologies and the new trends? Like how many people thought the internet was a scam, and there's all these videos of like people are like, oh, this is too hard to use, like no one's going to use this, all this stuff, and then it's like 10 years later they're wrong, and people are too complacent. Just like if you're not hungry, if you're very comfortable, you tend to just want to relax and not and be very close-minded, and that's the dangerous thing. Like for me, I'm always really curious about like just learning new things all the time. Like it's just like my hobby. And so I ask a lot of really dumb questions. Like, and sometimes I might have an opinion I already know the answer to, but I just want to hear other people's feedback. And I tend to learn, okay, this is how other people think, or this is a different perspective I haven't thought about. And this definitely gets me into more of an open mind. And so I can have a clearer picture of the whole, like the whole situation. And you look at like even history too, like, there's a war. And there's always two sides to this war, right? So it's typically the winner decides what's right about, like in the history books, like
exactly
how it's portrayed. But then there's definitely the other side where you can portray like, from the other, and it sort of gives you an unbiased opinion if you read both sides. So yeah, it's just he might change his opinion. I mean, you've seen like Chase, Jamie Dimon hasn't changed his opinion, but the rest of Chase, it seems like they're super bullish on crypto. So it just takes time, right? I open people regardless of who it is. Like if they admit they're wrong and they want to join, I'm very happy. Like Kevin O'Leary was like the biggest like anti-crypto guy for so long, and now like if you go to his YouTube, all his videos are on crypto. Like it's just maybe because it gets the most engagements or whatever, but it does seem like he genuinely believes it too. Like,
well, he's going hard with WonderFi and buying up these different exchanges in Canada. So he's got some pretty big stake in the game. And then I remember him talking about how his portfolio used to be 5% crypto, but then because of the market, how well it did, it ballooned up to 20%. So he probably sold off. I don't think he talks about it, but it makes sense. But like what you said there about asking the dumb questions, I had a boss before when I was working in medical device, and he would always say, Rob, dare to be dumb. Go in there and ask stupid questions. And then that's the best way you're ever going to really get in the door and do those things. And it's true. Dare to be dumb. It makes a lot of sense. And in this space, I have a lot of questions because things move so fast.
Yeah.
All right. So Simon, let's finish this up, and then people can ask you a bunch of questions. Do Kwon. Apparently, this is what's going on. So South Korea slaps notification upon arrival on Terra's Do Kwon. This doesn't mean that he's arrested or anything like that, but it's just interesting how the noose tightens. South Korean prosecutors investigating Terra Luna request the Ministry of Justice to place a notification upon arrival for Do Kwon. And the travel ban on Terra co-founder Shin Yeon-sung. A notification upon arrival is a measure where the investigative force will be notified, of course. South Korean prosecutors conducted a search and seizure on 15 locations last week as part of the Luna investigation, including 7 crypto exchanges. Wow. Shin's private residence and Chai Corporation, Korean-based payments, And that's what's going on. But I believe right now, Do Kwon is in, I want to say Singapore. I think it said somewhere around there. But he's not in there. So the question is, how many places does he have left to go? And will he stand trial? Simon, what do you think?
I mean, regarding trial, I mean, I think it's inevitable, right? And I think the question comes down to, was there actual fraud or not? I mean, the whole blow up, I mean, it did seem like it was unintentional. I didn't really get into Luna just because the model seemed a little bit too risky, because it did seem like it was like a staircase up, elevator down kind of situation. and then that's exactly what happened, right? So it's just like they were running an experiment. It got too big too fast, and then it just kind of imploded. And now a bunch of retail people got hurt, and then also a lot of funds and stuff, and centralized platforms got hurt, which are hurt even more retail, which really sucks.
Right.
But yeah, I think the investigations will come out and determine if there was. I hope there was no actual fraud, because there were definitely genuine builders in the Terra Lunar ecosystem as well too. And after they come out of it, I hope they start building other projects, because there were a lot of bright minds. What really does piss me off is if there was intentional fraud and trying to do like a pump and dump or stuff like that, which some of the other projects definitely have.
Right.
Yeah, but I hope for the best. I don't know. It's just the Luna stuff already like imploded, so I hope there's no more bad news that comes out of it.
Yeah, you and me both. Hopefully, we've seen the worst days are behind us. So first of all, before we get into the questions, I know there's an echo for some reason. There's an echo on my mic. No, not on yours, Simon. It's on mine. Every time I talk, you're good to go. So can't change that setting on here, and I've turned everything down as much as I can, but it's not going to work. So
I can mute when you talk.
Try that. So does everybody hear okay, there we go. So that's probably what it is. All right, perfect. Now we figured it out. Let's get to some questions. So look, everybody, that takes care of today's news. If you got to take off, get out of here. Go live your life and have a great time and everything. Go buy a bunch of crypto, not financial advice. But that's it for right now for that news part. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. You don't have to subscribe to this every day. You know where to find me. But right now we're going to go in the Q&A, and me and Simon will answer all your questions to the best of our abilities, and we'll go from there. We got to take off. Adios. Now let's get into a little Q&A.